What's up, everybody? It's Steph the Pharaoh, coming to you with my buddy Marvin, longtime friend over here with Bipolar Frequencies. Today, I have episode 34. I'm extremely excited. Marvin, we've known each other for quite some time, man. I really love what you got going on with your music. I mean, the most recent song, Touch, I got to tell you.
Thank you.
I was playing it before you got here, actually. My girlfriend's like, play that song. And we played it.
Yes.
But we got a lot to talk about. This podcast has been a long time in the making. I remember having lunch with you a while back, and we were talking about like why I wanted to have you on the podcast and things that motivated me about what you're currently doing. And I wanted to give you the platform to talk about a lot of things that are in the industry, where you got your start, how you got your start, and ultimately, you know, everything that you're currently doing now, man. So without further ado, we got Marvin over here, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. So Marvin, tell me a little bit, brother, about how you got started in the music. I mean, because like I said, we've known each other, what, in like 2012 we met each other?
Yeah, and that's actually a great timing because 2012 was, I'd say, when my first journey to like the rave culture. I was going through a time where I had left home, dropped out of college, started working just to kind of find myself, because I feel like coming out of college or going into college.
From high school, right?
From high school, yeah. You know, I was always kind of a nerd and wanted to go to school and all these things, but my parents were a little bit on me about specific things, but I never thought that they actually looked at what I wanted to do. And, you know, as a first generation, you know, Hispanic American, you know, you're always trying to please them and trying to do what they want you to do. And as much as that's dope and some people can do it, for me, it was just a little bit too much because I was, you know, first of all, I was in a foster home. I moved in with them when I was 12, and, you know, the dynamics were very different, and I was still trying to learn how to be in a family. So there was times where we clashed and I didn't feel like they were really looking out for my best interest into what I wanted to do. So when I went through that journey, I one day landed at EDC for my first rave ever, which is crazy.
It's a good first rave to go to.
Yeah. Usually people go to like the Renegades and stuff, but no, I went straight to the big festival. And, you know, I was going through the emotions, you know, I was trying to really find myself, how they say, as cheesy as it is. And, you know, when I was going through that, at the same time, I was doing Vima. And that's when I started learning personal development with a business. So around that time, it kind of intertwined together where I really started to look at myself. I'm like, well, I think I want to do the music thing, because when we talk about stories, which is something we learn in personal development, it's like I have a story, you know, like I've gone through this crazy life where, you know, I have things that I can talk about, and sometimes I can't talk about it with words because it's sometimes difficult for me as well. And if I can do it through sounds, you know, I'm like, fuck it, let's do it. So at that point, you know, around 2012, I really got immersed into the rave culture. I was kind of dabbling with it, doing things at home. But I think it was really just the emotional aspect of like, you know, I want to be able to be of service to people. I don't want to do it through the capitalistic way where we have to go through the 9 to 5 and, you know, kind of become slaves in a way. And especially within business, you know, I always thought about, okay, a business is about being a CEO, you know? If you go to school, you're business administration and you're kind of always underneath. So there was no really real way to move up the ladder unless you know somebody or, you know, you're really in it. So for me, it's like, well, I think I can be that wild card. You know, if I put all my chips on myself and what I believe in, put in my story, really put in the work, then I can do this. So from 2012 is when I started really taking it serious. At the time, I actually had a partner, Colton, shout out to the boy, but, you know, we kind of met each other at this time, decided to kind of do a duo and, you know, kind of take this head on. Yeah. So we went from bedroom DJs and slowly started to work our way out.
So this was all the way back as far as 2012.
So 2012 is when I started the journey. Around the end of 2013, beginning of 2014 is when I started to, you know, team up with a boy and really like, okay, you know, let's
mess with sounds.
Yeah, mess with sounds. And for me, it was like the business aspect is like, oh, well, I can take all these Vima things that we're learning and then put them into the music thing and make it work.
And to kind of capitalize on that for those that don't know what Vima was, it was just a health and wellness company, but they talked a lot about like business, and that's where like that mindset of an entrepreneur came into play. And you were talking about a little while ago how creating a brand, you know, I mean, we always had talked about things that we were promoting by talking, right?
Yeah.
And sharing with friends. And So I can totally relate in how you thought, you know, at the time, because hence what I started doing, right?
Yeah.
Same kind of thing. So I love that. Like you saw the bigger picture and you're like, hey, why not with music? And I was going to ask you, had you done any type of music before? Like
Good question. So what made me really believe that I could do it, like the realty there is, growing up, I was always keen to like listening to Hispanic music and stuff like that. When I moved from LA, because I lived in LA my whole life, you know, grew up in South Central, Compton, those areas, and then I moved here in 2006 to straight up Clovis, so it's completely different.
Night and day different.
Yes, yeah. And opportunities opened up, you know. So around that time, at the time, I think I was getting along with all like the only Mexican people in school, because we were in a very big, you know, white school, and they ended up having like a dance team, and I guess they competed with a whole bunch of other teams around town. And so I was like, you know what, I think I'm gonna join in, you know? So I was able to join in, and for almost 3 years and a half, I think I went through it, you know? Got all the way to the top, to the point where my senior year, I was the captain of the team, and, you know, just really did dances like salsa, bachata, you know, tango, all these dope dances that, you know, from our culture come out of. And that's where I really think a lot of my musicality started, because I realized, oh man, like this is one, our culture. Two, it's really in my blood, because like I feel like I've done this for the first time, but like I can move, you know? And I really fell in love with music. Most importantly, rhythm, which I think is along the line when you start making music, is one of the most important things to kind of like get through or like really feel, because
like where you embody that music.
Exactly. So I'd say most of it started there. Previously to me moving though, I did take like a year of drum classes, because when I went to a foster home, my brother, he was in classes already, and he was doing guitar. So I think a year afterwards, my dad came, he's like, hey, you know, do you and your sisters want to go to music classes? So my sisters took piano. I decided to take the drums, because I don't want to do the same thing my brother was doing.
That makes sense, yeah.
And I just wanted to bang shit, you know?
So did you play on a set or?
Yeah, a whole drum set, yeah.
Okay.
So I did that for a year, but then we moved here. So then the same teacher and everything, our dad kind of weaned us off, and we just never went back. So for me, it was like, okay, well, I lost that for a little bit, but the dancing can kind of keep me in, you know?
Wow. I mean, it's interesting that you say that, because I grew up a drummer, and I didn't dance until I found that rhythm and realized I could tune into it. So I related to that in a way, because that's so true. And for you just to kind of go back and forth and now to make music, when you said that you were a dance instructor, I'm like, the first thing my girlfriend's gonna tell you after this is teach me how to do all of those dances.
Hey, we're gonna have to go out, man.
Yeah.
Gotta double date it.
There you go. Man, so that's actually fascinating, because a lot of people, I would say, you know, always are like, hey, I want to try that. But for you, you found something, and then you're like, okay, you went all in, you and your partner at the time. Yeah. And I just remember, I mean, you fast forward all the way to about like 2019, Vima had been long gone, right? But I found a lot of people at that time that we were associated with just had open minds, you know, and you were somebody that always had an open mind. I remember you getting affiliated. I don't remember quite like the structure or anything, but I remember one day showing up to an event, and you were there, and you're like, hey man, how's it going? And I'm like, hey, you know, but man, it's crazy, because we just met so many different people, you know, and it's cool to see now what everybody's kind of up to. And for you, you just rebranded and created something, and you put it out there, something that you had like in that vision, you know, aspect of it all. So fast forward, like I said, to about 2019, I saw that you headlined pretty much Grizzly Fest. That was pretty cool. I mean, how did you go from, in your words, not mine, but bedroom DJ to headlining a major show like that out here in Fresno, making a name for yourself, man, making statements?
That journey was,
you know
wild. I think around 2013, 14 is when me and my old partner kind of linked up and really started, you know, working at it. Now, there was a point where we weren't really connected to anybody in town, and there was a couple of teams, mainly the teams that are big now, that are throwing shows for Fresno, that were doing things, but I'm like, man, I don't know how to get to them. So at one point we're like, you know what, we need to find a spot where we can do our own thing, so we can kind of self-promote ourselves. And I think this is where the Vima stuff kind of came into play, where I started understanding, okay, well, we gotta show value, give people value, but we also gotta give it to them first so they know what we're doing. We can't just go out there, asking for handouts. So what I ended up doing is we ended up going to places all over Clovis to try to find a venue. There was a place called Martin's Bar at the time in Old Town Clovis, which is, in hindsight, one of the worst places to try to do EDM. And we figured that out real quick. But we did a couple of Thursdays. The lady gave us a Thursday night, slowest, most boring night to actually do them. And if I'm honest, it might have been Wednesday because I think Thursday's like college night and it wasn't even that popping. So it was like some off day, right? And, we did a couple of shows, our friends kind of came out, maybe like 10 people. It was honestly really empty the whole time. But we had another friend, Chase. And Chase, one day, I guess, he hit up my boy Brandon, the team that I work with now from Eclectic Events. And he's like, hey, you got to come see my boys. Like, you got to come see. So he told me about that. We gathered up all our friends, about like 30 of them, and the place is a small bar, so it looks somewhat decent. Yeah. And so we threw, one of our regular shows, but a lot more people came out, and he ended up showing up. And from that day, he kind of saw us. He liked what he saw, and I tried to spit some game. And next thing you know, he's starting to put us on these, I think Liquid Fetish was one of our first sets, and it was like a small little art place in downtown Fresno. Okay. But that was kind of how we got our foot in the door. We just did our own thing, try to get, even if it was a shitty bar, nobody was coming, but it allowed somebody to come see us and at least kind of scout and then give us an opportunity. So that's kind of how we kind of went from bedroom to like in Fresno being able to start playing with these people, which that door opened up the doors for everybody else to start, wanting to put us on.
Because I was going to say, granted, I was never really connected with like the EDM music type, like rave, like you said earlier, like the rave type scene, or even music for that matter at that point. Like, I blame my dad, but growing up predominantly like rap environment, you know what I mean? Very narrow
I feel you. I'm right there
category, but it's grown. The whole scene out here and in other areas, right, have grown.
It has.
Shoot, that's crazy, right? Like within that period of time, what would you say added to like a lot of that? Like you got to kind of see it from what, 0 to where it's at today, right?
Yeah, that's a loaded question. I think a lot, to be honest. I think obviously as an artist myself and fan first and foremost, I gotta say it was definitely the people just kind of getting more open-minded themselves to like new music. Because I also came from a hip-hop rap background, that's my roots. But around 2012 is when I wanted to get out, you know? And there was a shift where I started seeing people, especially here, where they're all about rap and hip hop. All of Fresno, most of Central Valley, they're all about, the real kind of ghetto stuff, you know? But slowly but surely, these guys started throwing little shows. And at first it was like in like the Tulare Fairgrounds, the Fresno Fairgrounds, and they were kind of like small little renegades. But between them and the combo of the people that were starting to go to these EDC festivals and other things, I think everybody started opening up more to the music. And from there, it slowly but surely just started growing, which is interesting because I think during the pandemic, there was a shift as well. And before the pandemic, I don't think it was as boomy, as many competitors throwing shows. It was maybe 3 companies here that were really doing it at a professional level. But after the pandemic, it kind of took another step, and that's what you see now, where you have all these newcomers, younger people competing, which is always good for us fans. And so I'd gotta say, it's probably a combination from the people that are throwing shows and a lot of the people that decided to get into EDM more, which what was crazy is a lot of the people we met at Vima, when I was in Vima, they weren't into EDM, you know? Halfway through this journey, so around 2016, 17 or something like that, all of a sudden the people that never listened to it would come up to me and be like, oh, hey, have you heard this artist? Or hey, I'm gonna go to this show. And I'm like, wait, like, you like this music, you know? I'm like, just a couple years ago, I showed you something and like, you weren't really about it, but it was good. Cause for me, it's like, okay, the normal people that aren't really about the rave are starting to get into it. Then I had people from high school that I haven't seen forever that were all about rap and hip hop that then were coming up to me. They're like, oh bro, I just heard this bad trap dubstep track, you know, and they started kind of assimilating more. And then now you just see a boom where everybody's kind of, you hear it in the gym, you hear it in the radio, you know?
No, exactly.
So it's a combination of both of them.
I feel like for me, the number one thing that captivated me was in the beginning was a lot of music with the drums, because that's what I came from. And like a good bass line, like if you have that, which some of your music does too, and I'm just like, dang, you know what I mean? Like, it's captivating.
People love the bass, man.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
It's that feel component, you know. I mean, when it comes to making songs, like, as I learned it, that's what they've always told me. It's like, look, bass is more of the feeling. It's not what you hear, it's what you feel. And I think that's what we're all, for the most part, attracted to. So I agree with you. Like, I'm a slut for like bass dance, you know what I'm saying? Like, I dance.
For me, like, I just, like, there's nothing like playing music to the max capacity and like truly feeling that like you would at a concert or like a show, for example, you know what I mean? And I grew up with my dad having a system in the back, literally me being in the back in the car seat, like just going nuts, you know? So it brings back those memories. But going back a little bit, I mean, tell me what it was like in the very beginning. Like, you have this goal in your head, this vision, right, for what you want. But we both know that having that in our mind and actually making it, being able to manifest it, right? You know, it's a mixture of everything, like our thoughts, our actions, and then our faith in it all, right?
Yeah, the faith is, I think, one of the hardest parts sometimes, you know. At the end of the day, we do live in a capitalistic world. So when it comes to business, you got to deal with that. And I think in the beginning, it was a lot harder for not just myself, but anybody that kind of came in around that year, or I would call it class. And it wasn't like it was now. And I'm very glad where the scene is at now, when the opportunities, everything comes a lot easier. Everybody kind of like plays for everybody as far as DJs. But when we first started, or I first started, it wasn't like that. It was pretty cutthroat, you know. There was a lot of politics going into it. There still is some now. Yeah, so it wasn't as easy. I remember playing a show for somebody else one time, and, you know, another team that I was working with wouldn't book me for a while just because I was playing for them now, you know. So instead of like embracing, oh, you know, we're building this community, it was more like,
you're growing too.
Yeah, and so in reality, it was awful. You know, it was awful, but because of the background that I believe we come from and understanding the game in the sense of business, it was just work. You know, it's like, okay, I just got to figure out my way. Like, I can't expect this to be easy. It's not going to be easy. And if I have to write it out like this, I will. And unfortunately, because I come from like a very, you know, rough background, I'm also not the type of person that likes to, you know, pardon me for my words, but like suck anybody's dick, you know? And there's a lot of that too in the beginning. And for me, it's just like, that's not who I am. I'm not trying to do this to like fluff anybody up. Like, I'm really doing it for the music and the story that I'm trying to create and to connect people, because at the end of the day, music, and what I learned at EDC in 2012 is that, you know, music really saved my life. And that's another cheesy line that a lot of people give, but I really mean it, because the things in my story and my life that I was going through, when I was going through these, you know, stages and music and going through the emotions, I really understood that that's the way that we can really connect at the end of the day as human beings at the very base level. And in that sense, I felt like it was going against what they were trying to do capitalistically with how they were trying to play the game. So a lot of the times I actually got my ass kicked. I didn't, you know, get shows from here and there. It took me a while to kind of come back around and get shows from certain people. Dang. And some people till this day, I still don't get shows, you know?
Just because you're working with
that, or because of the way that I like stood my ground, or the way that I communicated, because with the business mindset that we have, you know, and yeah, at times it was maybe I could have made better decisions in the sense, but my intentions and my vision was always pure to the music, to the people. And that wasn't always, you know, recognized. That wasn't always received, because they were playing their own agenda with the way they wanted to play the game. And, you know, to each their own, but to me as a fan and an artist, I can't do that, you know? I'm all about building a business and understanding all that, but I don't have to take away my values of what I actually believe in as a whole, which for me, music is about life and the connectivity. I'm not gonna do that. So
just for you.
Right? Yeah, so it brushed a lot of people's heads wrong, you know?
It will when you're being authentic and you're saying your truth, because the truth hurts either way you slice it, you know, and some people, they want you to comply with their authority. And it's like, in this world, you're either gonna stand your ground or get pushed over. And I've been there to where I was like, enough's enough, you know, in certain areas.
And what was really hard, and I do see it now, and I can understand to a certain extent, but I was also young, you know? So they're looking at you, they're like, what, maybe 10 years older than you, they look at you like, oh, you're young, you know, like you don't know shit. And in the reality, like I did know quite a bit to be able to do. And what they didn't understand is like, bro, I could be one of your biggest assets. Like I'm here to really be a team player and help you grow, not be a competition and try to make it all about me. But instead it was taken so off and different. Like I had one conversation where a guy called me, you know, one of these promoters was like, hey, like you're just one of those, you know, what's the words he used? Like, you're just one of those entitled DJs. All because I was just trying to defend my position and, you know, hey, like if we're gonna work together or something like that, well, you know, there has to be an even keen, because I try to communicate with you to try to work business with you, you know, a while ago, and now you're hitting me with, hey, you know, you wanna help me with my business. And instead of the conversation going well, because we're professional, we've never been, you know, mean or anything like that, it's like, oh no, it got received very wrong. And then I got called these things. I'm like, oh man, like the way you guys are working, as a matter of fact, I don't wanna work with you guys with business anyways. That's when I started understanding, like, you can work with a lot of different people, but you don't have to work with everybody.
Yeah.
You know, you can work with the right people and still move forward and succeed. Might take a little bit longer, but you keep your authenticity and you keep your dignity, which is the one thing that I wanted to keep, because everybody, especially from the beginning, now it's more saturated, but it started becoming a saturated game. You know, everybody want to be a DJ, everybody want to do this, and it's natural and normal, but how do you stand out, right? When it comes to selling anything, let alone myself, it's like, how am I going to stand out? And for me, it was always about my story, you know, who I am. And because of my rough background, I'm trying to make the world a better place. Not add on to this, you know, capitalistic world where we don't care about humanity, where we don't care about the right things, especially when it's so vulnerable and it's all about the emotions. So for me, it was protecting that at all costs, because that is what my brand is who you are. And I'm just, you know, I'm just a mirror to everybody. You know, I'm just another human being. I'm nothing special, you know, but together we are. If we could see those things from each other, that's what makes this special.
Absolutely.
And so in the beginning, it was very hard, you know. Through time, I think most of these people started understanding and learning. And when the new wave of DJs came in, I think they started giving them the opportunity to start, you know, being a lot more eased off. But it wasn't that fun, you know. As far as shows, it was, because we were playing for people. But when it came down to getting paid, to being respected as, hey, you know what, they're actually, you know, something, most of the time they would just use us. And it's not just me, it's all the other guys as well.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. But you were there from like the beginning, so you kind of see it, the scene progress, right? Yeah,
and now I know in any type of industry, you're gonna have to go through those growing pains, you know?
Absolutely. And I like that you said that, because what you went through, as far as you called it, you know, standing your ground and being authentic, you go through that in many different businesses where you have to basically draw the line somewhere and be like, hey, no, I'm not going to take your money. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it took me a while to also get to that point, but it's a little satisfying when you keep your dignity, right? Where you're like, hey, I get to just walk away, like I'm not even sweating it, and you just do your own thing. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to be a slave to that emotion of like, oh man, I'm just putting up with it. Right? Go where you're celebrated, not where you're tolerated. And
it takes a while. Like, it took me a long time. I wouldn't doubt that some of the old people that were around me would think that I was bitter, you know? But at the same time, it's like, how could you be when, you know, you're pushing towards this in a very, you know, positive way, and then everybody around that is mostly in the business doesn't say anything, and they just let you get, you know, ran through, and it's like, oh, okay, so what they did was right. And it's like, oh, so I have to hold those emotions, I have to process that, and all that is stuff that they projected onto me. But the beautiful part for me is understanding the musicality of it. All I did was, all right, that's something, a chip on my shoulder. I make emotional music, I'm gonna do it through music then. I'm gonna put all this energy you guys are giving me and put it back into the work, because at the end of the day, it's gonna get to a point where you guys cannot deny that I am one of those dudes that can put this at a different level as well, that can add on to the culture, that can add on to the community, just like all the other guys that are adding on to it too. Because there's a difference from promoters throwing the shows, and of course they get most of the love and stuff, because it's like, oh, they're bringing people.
They're putting it together.
Yeah, but what a lot of people forget, and a lot of them too, is it's also the guys that aspire to be DJs, the guys that are actually doing the work, because most of the time, who are you guys hitting up to be part of these shows, to be, you know, supporters for your acts? And why do you do it? it's not just because you like them. It's because you know, oh, this person's going to be 30 people from this area, from this demographic. They're going to bring this. So it's all a game. They try to play it off like it's not, but it's like, and it's fine, you know, play the game. It's all good. But when you don't put the respect and the love to the guys, and not just me, all the other guys that are bringing their friends, that are being enthusiastic, you know, word of mouth, talking about your show or your things, and they don't get the love and respect, that's where, for me, understanding the business side and understanding that I'm in it, it's like, this doesn't seem right. And like, also, this is not going to be like this forever, because new people are going to come in apart from me. This is going to become a big thing, which means more competition.
Amongst DJs? Or?
Amongst all of them, you know, whether it's DJs or promoters. And that has changed the game, kind of going back to like the whole, they kind of had to submit in the last, you know, couple of years since the pandemic, when we have newcomers coming in where now they have to be friendly. I can't just, you know, not work with people. It's like, now I have to work with people because there's more people coming in, and, you know, my little facade might go away.
So there's a lot of promoters from what I'm getting.
There's quite a bit now. I think there's like a solid 4 to 5 that are the main ones that are, for lack of better terms, probably monopolizing it. You know, one is
throwing bigger events and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And more, you know, much love to them. I think everybody, you know, I believe in people growing, and I've seen a lot of them grow too. But I also have to say how it is, you know, because I went through a lot just to continue to stay here and stay relevant. And that's without a lot of the opportunities that, you know, a lot of us, not just myself, but other guys that came up in my class don't get, you know, where you have to do things. Like, we have some guys right now that had to start their own company, you know, and try to start undergrounds just to do their thing, because they're not getting opportunities, you know? And it's things like that that people have to do, because they get caught up in just, okay, well, we're doing, you know, the show things, like, you know, we're all good, but you forget about the people that actually help build you, which is those people as well. Yeah, you could put in the money for all these things, but if all these fans and all these people that you put to support weren't really writing for you and talking about your thing, you guys wouldn't be anything either, you know?
Yeah.
It's kind of like what we have with capitalism. It's like, okay, the CEO, okay, he's important, but the workers are important too. Without the workers, your company ain't gonna be nothing.
Yeah,
and a lot of people forget that. Exactly. So they give the bare minimum. A lot of people still don't get paid. Like, believe it or not, a lot of these DJs... At these events, a lot of these DJs don't get paid, and if they do, it's very minimum. I think right now, a lot of people have been getting paid, but for the most part, a lot of people don't get paid.
Dang,
and you would think they would.
For free?
Yeah, because they don't really try to run a real business, you know? I remember trying to send a contract one time, you know, in the beginning stage, I'm like, hey, you know, I'm gonna do it professionally. I'm gonna do a contract so that way everything's good. And just by doing the contract or sending it, it's like, we're not... It's not even that. It's just like, okay, well, we're not going to book you.
Wow.
Yeah. And back again, I was young.
Like charging, or
partially?
Just because you wanted to have like some sort of written agreement?
I would say it's both, you know? And mind you, it's not like I'm over here asking for, because there's some DJs that do be asking for a lot of money, by the way. Yeah, but at the time too, it was like, well, maybe you're asking for $25 or $50 for the hour. Dang. And they still won't, you know, be down. Or the famous thing that was back then was, okay, well, if you sell this amount of tickets, you get some cut from that. But it's like, that's not fair, because these guys are providing a service for you. But what they do is just, guys are so young, they're hungry, and I was there too, and they might not know as much business mindset like we do, to where they're like, oh, well, if I take all these and, like, you know, get on their good side, like, yeah, you'll get your opportunities, you know, and you'll get your stuff. But at the cost of, like, then being in this cycle where you're never really going to be respected fully, and they're just going to use you whenever they need something and then throw you away whenever they're doing other things, you know? Yeah. And so, unfortunately, I knew too much of that, I guess, in the beginning, and that's why when I moved the way that I did, it probably rubbed them off, because they thought they could just, you know... Manipulate, and they couldn't, so they decided to take the other route. So that's the ugly side of the stuff, but it's what we still deal with sometimes. Nowadays, it's a little bit easier.
I would say, because you've grown and you know how to move smoothly at this point, right? No, man, that's wild, because you wouldn't really think that exists in your industry. But I mean, I've seen it also across my whole career of just different jobs that I've done.
Capitalism, baby.
And yeah, it's wild. And I can attest to what you're saying. In general, I think what it comes down to is just being like an authentic person and carrying yourself that of which you want other people to treat you like, right? Like, with respect. And I think you and I, we operate on a different wavelength than most people, right? Like, they're just all about theirs. And I mean, I guess there's nothing wrong with that to an extent, but like if you have to take from somebody else's pocket, in my opinion, you're not really doing the greater good that you can be doing if you were to create a winning environment where people are comfortable, where they feel like they're a part of something, right?
Yeah.
I mean, not even saying you got to split all the profits, right? But it's like, hey, do the right thing.
You know, that's my thing, because I understand. Look, we live in a capitalistic world. You're gonna have to play the game. You know, no doubt about it. But if you are making a good amount of profit, you should be able to give your people something.
Yeah.
You know, even if they are in the beginning and suck and they're playing an 8 o'clock show and that's when the show starts, it doesn't matter. That person's putting time into it and they probably need that $25, maybe $15, let's say, at the time. Now the place is, you know, up, but it's like it'll help them buy maybe a meal to do another thing to get to this next level. But one of the big takeaways I want to say from this is what really rubbed me the wrong way was understanding capitalism and, okay, you got to do your shit. Well, part of the rave culture, and people tend to forget this a lot, including us fans sometimes, we have a thing, and it's very, very cheesy, but it's a thing called plur. You know, that's plur. What the basis is. P-L-U-R. Okay. And that's plur. The basis of our community. You know, when I first went into, you know, EDC 2012, the reason why I loved it is because of the love, the peace, love, unity, and respect. Damn. That people have at these events. Coming from a hip hop rap background where everything's so grungy and so negative and you're talking, you know, smack about girls and guys and killing and all this, it's like I wanted to change, you know, I wanted to change that in my life as well. And through the influences, specifically music, is why I did the switch as well. So when I go into this culture and it's all about that and that's what we embody, and then we come back here and we're trying to build the community. Some of them build it, but it's built on capitalism and forgetting about your people. And then only submitting when things start growing now and like, oh, I have to now because like, oh, if not, you know, that's what rubbed me wrong. Because it's like, you're taking away the actual culture of what we have. Like, don't get me wrong, make your money, but take care of your people, because if you take care of your people, they'll take care of your business. Then you don't have things like this or a conversation like this where it's like, oh yeah, 10 years later, I'm still here, even without you guys, but I'm still gonna spill the tea because guess what? There's other people like me trying to struggle, probably in a worse situation, and I want them to make it because it's not just about me. It's about the community. It's about the music that we can leave here timeless to help each other grow, live, enjoy, you know, have fun as well. But most importantly, the community is based on plur. And if you're making money off of plur and you're not really being plur, even though some people may have think that it's lost, it was been lost because people do shit like that and then allow it. But that's why I'm here, where it's like, I'm not gonna allow that. Okay, let me take 10, 20 years to get to where you guys are at, because I'm not maybe 30 years old and not in real estate and have the money to just throw in this stuff. I'm still young, but I got it. And I understand what to do with the money and I understand how to move it around, because at the end of the day, it's about the people. Music for me at the end of the day is about the people.
Absolutely.
And that is my mission at the end of the day, where it's like, I know where I come from. I come from the gutters of LA. I know how it is to live struggling where the state doesn't give any money to your city and stuff. I understand it. I get that you want to make money, but you got to help your people that help you build it along the way. And sometimes some people help you build it for a day. Sometimes people help you build it for a year. Sometimes people stay there forever, but you can't forget about each one of those people. Because if for me, in my personal life, apart from music, I wouldn't even been able to have the audacity to think that I can be a DJ and a producer if it wasn't for so many people in my life, some that I don't know, some I don't even remember their faces to this day, but I remember what they told me. I remember how they guided me. I remember the food they gave me, the couple dollars they gave me when I needed it. And those are the people that I also ride for. Because not everything is just about the money and the stuff. No, it's about this life that we're living in. We can make it better, and we are going to make it better. We are making it better. But it's these fights that we have to go through sometimes, these growing pains, you know, that for me, it sucked at the beginning, but I'm so prideful now in a positive way about, nah, like I'm still here. And if I'm still here, I know you guys can still make it. And that's always been my message. Like, there's no way that you guys can't do what I can do or better. Because if I did it like this with the minimal amount of resources and the resistance, imagine what you can do.
Well, I will say you are still here, brother. You are still here. It's 2023. We're at the tail end of July. You actually performed at Foam of July, right? Out here. I wish I could have made it. I'd saw the headlines and I'm like, my boy doing it big already. You know what I'm saying? Always doing it big. And so tell us a little bit. You have some shows coming up, actually.
Yeah, so we have 2 shows. I will not be playing in this next one, and I can't really say if I'm playing the other one because, you know, gotta keep it low key.
Okay.
But we have one in September, and we're bringing some guys from the UK as a trio, and they're called the Gentlemen's Club. So our team, by the way, if I haven't mentioned it, as I worked with, you know, the community here, I ended up staying very loyal to Eclectic Events. And Brandon, that I told you that kind of scouted me from the beginning, that is, you know, the one who runs it along with Jared and Ashley.
Eclectic Events.
Mm-hmm. So they're the ones that are throwing these shows that I'm letting you guys know about. They're the ones that put me for foam. They're the ones who have helped me kind of grow my brand. And even now they're like a lot more invested in helping me, you know, actually
That's
build
awesome.
the way that all these other guys should do for their people, you know?
Yeah, that's
And
awesome.
so I ride or die for them. So they're having a show coming up for Gentlemen's Club. And then we have a special one at Hobbs Grove where we usually do our foam and stuff. And it'll be a kind of Dia de los Muertos kind of like a theme.
Okay.
And that one's coming in November, I believe. So
Okay.
those are 2 shows. I might or may not play that one, so keep an eye out. And
I love the
yeah.
mysterious vibe of we don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that's what we got going on. I might have, you know, a couple of tracks. I know this year I'm releasing a track every month. So
Nice.
on the 11th of August, I will have a new song out. These last 2 tracks were collabs with some of the boys in town, some of the guys that I think deserve it. They're some of the new guys as well, but they've been working their butts off. They've been making their own music, and, you know, they're really down to earth people. So I made some with them, but the next couple songs will be just straight singles before I go on a collab fest again.
There you go, man. A lot of new music coming for you guys. If you haven't tuned in, Bipolar Frequencies, guys, find them on all of the streaming platforms. My favorite all time, I have to say, man, you did an amazing job with the song You and I. You have a
thank
crazy
you.
catalog. I mean, quite crazy. It's quite bipolar. I mean, I'll tell you. I mean, it is wild because, like, you can create sound, music out of so many different sounds that actually complement each other, which is, I mean, go in with an open mind, listen. I mean, there are some amazing tracks in there. I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right. I want to say that the song is probably called I Don't Give a Fuck.
Yeah.
Mother effer. But it's abbreviated, I believe. And that song is wild. Like, literally, you could tell, like, hey, Marvin he didn't give a fuck.
No, I
You know?
I didn't. I think around that time is when I was going through a lot of these emotions of the, like, politics stuff, where I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to make a track and just put it all in there. And that's what it was. It was like a tech house version of, like, I don't give a fuck today. Like, you know, we're just going to go in there. No reference track, just go off the hip.
And the recent one you actually dropped, I don't remember the day, but it was this month. It was Touch.
Yeah.
That was a collab?
Yeah, that was a collab with the boy B-Mill.
That one
Tristan.
is hot. Like, go listen to it. I mean, yeah, it's a gym.
People love that
gym
one.
song. I mean, anything upbeat. I like upbeat music. You know what I mean? My girlfriend gets mad at me all the time. She's like, I just want to chill, but I'm like, no, I'm always up, bro. You always have to. As a creator, you always have to be up. And tell me about that real quick, because, man, making music. I mean, I make obviously podcasts here and there. You know, something for the people, something to keep people going, inspire, bring people new stories, and inspiration from all different facets of every industry. You know, that's my main goal, because there's so many different people that have stories. And Marvin, I mean, yours is powerful. I had no idea, brother, that you grew up in foster care, but how do you feel that, like, how it translated into now? Not so much that, but like taking all of those emotions and putting it on a track. Like, when and how did that become, like, comfortable for you?
I think it was as soon as I switched from, like, rap hip hop to EDM music. And it was because I was really longing for what was missing, which I felt we were losing a lot of connectivity and, you know, the real feelings of things. And it was around that time, I'm pretty sure, where I kind of made that switch. But can you repeat the question one more time?
Yeah, no. So what I really want to know is, like, how you started to say, hey, like, this is what I'm feeling, and bring it into fruition in music.
I know what I was going to say. It goes back to full circle. The story, you know, the whole point of me making music and releasing music is to put music down that's timeless, and what's going to be timeless for me for the most part is always your experience that you're dealing with. So when I sit down to make music, any song, whether it's a song that I made, You and I, Touch, I have to put in what I'm going through in that exact moment, you know, because that's the whole point of taking you through my journey, taking you through my story, is that my story doesn't just start and end, you know, through my years of like the hardest parts of my life. It continues, you know, as long as I continue getting life every day, like it's gonna continue. And we're all living in some type of, you know, timeline together here in this realm. And there's a lot of people that I know are going through the same thing that I'm going through, but they may not be here, or they may not be able to know how to say it. So for me, it's in the moment, how I'm feeling right now, because that is what the story is about with every one of my tracks, is me and my experience as a human being. And if I can note that down and do it right, then for the most part, it can resonate, you know? There's tracks that I go back to my own where, you know, I may be feeling a different way than I'm feeling right now, but like it still hits, you know? And that's where I'm like, okay, I did my job, because I can go back, or other people can go back to the catalog and feel whatever feeling they need to feel at the moment, and either immerse themselves in the feeling or release whatever emotion they need to let go. And I think that that's what's super important as far as like music making for me.
Man, that's crazy to think about, because like when I sit down and I also create, like I have to be in a certain zone, but I don't make music, so I can only imagine bringing, you know, what you're feeling and finding the sound to, you know, tell the story, right? I think that can be a
I'll tell you something cool, man. Like I had to find like a formula of how to deal with this, because, you know, as I try to explain it to my friends, I'm like, look, you're not going to go into the studio every day, especially when it comes to emotions. You're not going to feel the same thing every day. Some days you're going to be super happy. Some days you're going to have a really angry day. Some days you're going to be super sad and depressed. So I had to start building a rotation where when I come in the studio, depending on the feeling, I'll have to either work on a track or have a track in my catalog that I haven't released yet and work on that feeling. So I go based off of feeling. So that way, when I go in there, no matter what I'm feeling, I either start or I have something already in that realm to where I can fit in my emotions at that day, so I don't waste my time and I don't waste the emotions that I'm going through.
And not trying to like, okay, you're feeling this, but
yeah, and fake it.
Dang,
that's my
creative.
method.
And that actually goes in full circle, like you kind of mentioned, on Bipolar Frequencies, because it's a catalog of emotions of which you were feeling that you want to, you know, emit out there. Man, that's wild. Like that's. Man, the method behind the madness is what I was looking for, but...
Method behind the madness. Yeah, man, Bipolar Frequencies originally, because I get these questions a lot too. It's like, oh, you know, like, are you bipolar? And I'm like, no, you know, like, I definitely understand, you know, mental issues and things like that. But originally, the reason through 2012 at EDC is when I really started seeing the duality in life a lot more, where I'm like, look, as human beings, like, and through the world, we have positive and negatives.
We experience them all.
Yeah, and you can't have one without the other. You gotta embrace them. Now you gotta be positive and, you know, good about it. You can't just be a negative person and stuff, but through music, I can at least, you know, make the harder music when I'm feeling that. Or if I'm, you know, in a dark place and I need to feel better, well, then I can work my way out through a positive song and build that, because there's always this duality where they connect each other. And for me, it's like, okay, well, as a human being, I'm gonna go through this journey where we're constantly going through all these things. And like you said earlier, I don't want to put myself in a box. In the beginning of this, when you really start looking at the business and like music sense, you know, most of the time they do want to put you in the box, especially, you know, record labels and things like that. No, you got to be in this lane.
Just in life, people don't want to see you bigger than where they currently see you.
Yeah.
Isn't that the craziest thing?
I hate it.
They want to suffocate you.
Yeah.
Man.
And a lot of times it's just fear, you know, fear of the unknown.
Scarcity. I always say it all the time, like abundance over scarcity. And I'm right with you, man. It's crazy. We two great minds. I mean, we think alike, you know, in many different ways, but we're in different areas, different realms, if you will. Like we're shedding this light of positivity and community together. You know what I mean? And again, that's why I have you here today, brother.
Yeah, thank you. And I appreciate it. And I don't know if we're almost done, but I do want to thank you, because you said something earlier about, you know, how I kind of helped you in a time where, you know, you were kind of low creatively or, you know, in energy. And I'm doing fairly well right now, but I have been holding back on my podcast a little bit, partially because of some of the things I mentioned here today, and partially because is sometimes it gets hard, you know.
Yeah,
It's so overwhelming
yeah.
with how much stuff we have to do just to make it happen. And I have so many things going on with school, you know, work, making the music, to where sometimes the time feels like it's not there. But I like to thank you because you kind of re-energize me again in the place where we come from, where it's like, hey, like we know what we have to do. So for me, it's kind of like you kind of gave me some of that energy back right now, and I know what I need to do to kind of continue rolling. Because a big part of me starting my podcast, just like yours, is kind of where I explained earlier with all this other stuff with, you know, the politics, is I'm not going to be focused on that, you know. It is what it is. They're going to do their thing. But what I can do is I can build then that bridge for those people that do need it, to give them a platform, to get them on, to learn about them as well. Because all these guys that are here in town that are aspiring producers, aspiring to be big as well, they deserve that time too, because they help build this community. And I can't let go of that because, you know, as we know, like there's not a lot of people like us that really have, I would like to say, the drive to actually want to do this, you know, let alone for the right reasons.
Right.
And I appreciate you for that, because I really needed that.
No problem, man. I mean, that's what we're here for in this world, you know, to be able to work together, to inspire, to rejuvenate people, our spirits. Like, I believe I'm a vessel for God, bro, for the Most High.
Likewise.
And I find it deep in my being a responsibility to do these things, even though they're hard, bro, because it is hard. I'll second that. I mean, we talked like a little over or just under a year ago, like, hey, we had these plans, life happens, right? I mean, man, it's wild. But yeah, if there's anything that I can help you with or guide you in the right direction, bro, like,
thank you.
Without a doubt, like, I got you. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would love for your podcast to thrive. And quite frankly, I think everybody needs to start a podcast, because there's so many people out there that are even in competition with podcasts. And I'm like, bro, I'm not a podcaster. I just like to talk.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That's how I feel.
Like,
I'm not trying to do podcasting for I'm just trying to put my people on.
Yeah, and that's what I would encourage, because I went to an event in 2019. It was a real estate conference, and there was a bunch of people that flipped houses. And I'm not quite like a house flipper. I don't, like, people ask me all the time, like, what do you do? And I generalize real estate because, like I told you earlier, like, I do so many different things, solar, home improvement projects. Like, if you have a house, I can probably make it look nice. Call me. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, I've just got creative with everything that I'm doing. But where I'm at now is, like, I just want to pour back and give people that platform to share who they are. You know what I mean? And,
it's important.
And that are in alignment with my core values as people, you know. And it's crazy because a lot of the people I've had on my show, man, I've known them for a very long time. So, like, if you go through the catalog too, all of these different people, like, I've known and I've seen blossom, and that is, I knew I needed to do it. You know what I mean? And I just had this, like, feeling of in my mind. I remember one night just thinking, man, who am I? Like, I'm not gonna do a podcast. Like, who's gonna listen to me? You know, like, I don't even listen to me you know what I mean? Like, but I stuck with it, man. And I kind of told you a little while ago, like, I had a few different people come up to me at Vitruvian Martial Arts. They were training there, and they were like, hey, I saw your podcast. And I'm like, thank you. Like, you watched it? How long? Did you tune out, you know? And they were like, I saw your podcast with Mark Primetime Felix. Shout out Mark Primetime Felix, by the way. He has an upcoming fight, and his story is crazy too. But man, you know, they resonated with him because he was a fighter, and he, you know, is aggressive, and he found an outlet, right? And that touched me, man. And I'm like, I have to continue. I don't care if one person listens, bro. Like, I have to continue. You know what I mean? Because you just never know.
And we know the grind, man. It's gonna be slow in the beginning, but then there's a boom.
Exactly, and that's like anything. I think it's cool to see just people, like I said, chasing their dream, their vision, and putting it out there, bro, because that's all this life really is. The chair was a vision by somebody, some guy crazy enough, right? The people that built the airplane. And that's all it really is. And for somebody to be able to materialize that and, like, chase after that, like, it inspires me. And I think that the world needs a lot of that, especially when it's, like, organic and original. You know what I mean? So
back to the authenticity thing, because I think, and you mentioned it earlier, you know, when we're in Vima, you know, we were taught to sell something, right? And believe in what you sell. So there was a certain point when everything kind of started breaking down with Vima and is, you know, kind of started going away, to where I started realizing, well, if I have to believe in something, why not believe in myself and something that I love to do? Because when it comes to those hard days, that's what's going to help me ride through those hard days, you know? And why build more of a brand for somebody else's product than my own product? So that's when I started really understanding, you know what, I am going to raves, I am loving that. I have a story within my own life where, you know, a lot of emotions that I have to process and kind of understand. I talk to different people and kind of connect with them at that personal level. I'm like, why don't I take my skills and use that with the music stuff and make that the product that I sell? Because at the end of the day, the product is me, you know, it's my experiences, the emotions that I put in my music. And if I can do that, then I can win at this game better than selling a pen or selling something else.
Something,
you know?
that you're not passionate about. Right?
Exactly. So when you said that, it hit me hard, because I'm like, no, that's really the reason why I chose to stick on this path and taking it seriously. Because in the beginning, I was just a bedroom DJ, and, you know, it was just kind of like a dream. But as we learned through personal development, like, you can make your dreams goals and then they could become a reality. So I just started putting the work on that instead of, you know, continuously going through multi-level marketing. It was just probably one of the biggest things. I tell almost everybody in, like, you know, my music or people that support me, where it's like, hey, like, a lot of this stuff comes from my business side, whether it be at my personal work, which I learned how to do independent contracting stuff, and Vima, which, you know, a lot of people may laugh at it and stuff because it's like Herbalife and multi-level marketing, but I attest a lot of my, you know, growth to personal development
that you got
in those
from
places.
That,
yeah, we used to go to those conventions, you know, like was seeing Bob
when
Proctor
we were like
talk.
20 something,
That was crazy. And
Seriously.
at the time, you know, I wasn't where I'm at now, where I had the time, the money. So it's like, to push myself, put myself in those situations, get a lot of that knowledge, and now being in this position and being able to take from that and build from it has been one of the best things that I can say was from my life, you know, and meeting people like you and other people that are still going. See, unlike you, I don't really keep in contact with so many people. I think because most people veered away and just kind of started
did their own thing.
Did their own thing, and not everybody stayed in that entrepreneurial mindset. And so I just kind of got to the grind, you know, and sometimes the grind is being away from everybody.
Man, Marvin, it's been a pleasure. I don't want this podcast to end,
right there
because the people need to hear exactly what we're talking about, regardless of the industry. You guys have to realize, like, you're going to go through a lot of these same emotions, a lot of these same circumstances with people with different facets of whatever industry, whatever career, whatever anything. Like, all of these situations will present itself, because I can attest to, like, what he's saying. Like, everybody's always out there for the profit, but when you truly forget about, like, who's building the company, hey, you know, you have to take care of the people, your clients, whoever it is, people that are spending money, you know, on these things. And I was going to ask you actually about the events and everything. Like, do you guys as DJs, I mean, so it's one thing, like, I can understand if maybe they're not paying you, but are you guys selling tickets for these people too?
You know, some people do. That's something that I do appreciate that they don't do too much anymore.
Like, make you, or?
Yeah, at least our team doesn't do that.
Cool,
like,
yeah,
because that was.
If you do, it's like for the event, right?
Yeah, because that was boo boo. Like, I didn't like that. I guess in the beginning, where you're super small, is one thing, but when you're at this level and it's like, all right, like, you
just prefer it to all be online. Or?
Yeah, well, at the end of the day, if you really think about it, it's like, well, there's a reason why there's called promoters, and that's their job. You know, my job is to DJ and entertain the people while you do all the other stuff. Gotcha. So it makes no sense, you know?
Yeah.
But I understand in the beginning, where if you're in a small city or something, and, you know, they're barely, like, making the money for, like, the rent and things like that. But at a certain level, you gotta help and put some of your money in there. Because at the end of the day, in a business too, you're gonna have to do that. You're gonna have to invest, you know? And you might not get a lot of money back in the first year or so. Yeah. And that's part of the investment.
All businesses, right? Like, we both know. I mean, it's even in the, you're a contractor, so you understand, like, even in that, it's like 95% of businesses fail in the first 5 years. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so
I haven't heard that in a while.
Yeah, I mean, it's so true. I was in a production meeting this morning, and the owner was saying, like, go look on California State License Board. Like, it says blatantly, you know, you wonder why a lot of these companies, like, they go belly up, and it's a part of the market. Like, some people don't invest in the business, you know, they just all about the money, and they go blow it and want to have this lifestyle. Man, but that is wild. Before we get to closing, I want to give you, brother, the opportunity to bring up anything that may be important to you that you want to kind of give light on.
I did have one
outs.
thing on my mind. I don't think I have much. Well, I could do some of that. But I think the biggest thing that I would like to say is just businesses, relationships. In business, people look at it so negatively. Growing up, I always saw the bad side of this. That's why it wasn't too much of a surprise when I was dealing with all this stuff.
That was a sign that it was confirmation.
Right? Yeah.
Nail on the head.
So, whenever you think of business, just know that it doesn't always have to be negative. It doesn't always have to be bad. It's not always, oh, I'm just stealing from you. There are great people out there running really good businesses that take care of your people. And if you do have a business, like, take care of your people, they'll always take care of you, hands down, no matter what. And with that, I will give my shout outs really to the whole Eclectic team, mainly, the people at the top that are running it, which is, Jared, Ashley, and Brandon. And, they're the ones that, even when we went through, I stood up for myself with them too at times, and we had conflicting ideals. Like, they still rode with me, they still believed in me, and is why I'm still here today as well. And I got to give them a lot of, my success as well in the last couple of years, because at the end of the day, you do need a team, but, choose your team wisely. There's people with good incentives and hearts out there, and you just got to continue the grind. You'll find them, and your people really will find you. And that's the best message that I can really give you guys through this journey, because it gets hard, but if you really believe in yourself, which I hope that you guys work on it, you'll be there.
Your vibe will attract your tribe.
Yes, I like that.
And it's so wild. I was going to ask you a little while ago also, because you mentioned some key things like your people. You've mentioned it a few times a little while ago and right now, and it just reminded me. But tell me, did you always have like the crazy, not crazy, but like in a good way, but the crazy following as far as like supporters? Because I know that that's a big reason that you do what you do as well. Yeah. Like friends, family, people around the valley.
In the beginning, it was a lot more of like friends, not much family. Family's coming around now a little bit, but it was really all the friends that I made outside when I chose to kind of find myself. Now, through this process, and I'll be honest, you will lose a lot of friends too, because you'll realize that not a lot of people also believe in you, and it'll show through, connections or separations. But it's like you said, your vibe will attract your tribe, and through this process, some of these people that have been here from the beginning are still here, and those are my biggest word of mouth people. Like, I, at this point, don't even have to say anything. We just go out and they're already, talking about me. And I believe that that's the reason why a lot of the strangers that either just go see me at my set and don't know me, or maybe I'm not even playing a set and I'm just around and they're just talking about me, end up becoming some of my biggest fans. And it's because of those core group of friends that stayed on believing in me from the beginning. And in the beginning, there was a lot of them. Now I'd say there's maybe a third of them that are still here with me. And I owe them everything. It goes back to, what we're doing life for is, is the people that help you on every journey. And to believe in something crazy like, oh, I can do this and actually, hit to the top, it is wild. I'm not delusional on it, but I also shouldn't be here in this chair alive this long with the story that I've, come up with. And if that's possible, then I know that that's possible, especially when you have people, behind you, believing in you at a high level like that. And that's something that's so beautiful. That's why I will go through the hard nights even till this day, when I'm trying to figure out how to make a new song or how I'm gonna make a new business move, and it's because of those people.
Man, that's powerful. I didn't forget what I was gonna say, but when you mentioned just the people that supported you, I remembered like the very few in the beginning for me too. And it's, looking back, you came a long journey, you know what I mean? From the path that you came through. And I just think that you being able to persevere through all the BS that you've explained, from what sounds like faulty promoters, right? That just want money, all the way to partner indifference, right? And going through all of that you're here where you are for a reason. You know what I mean? But brother, it's been an amazing time having you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no
This was
problem.
fun.
No problem. The last question I have for you
Let's go.
is going to be, what is your favorite song from your catalog? I know you have a million.
My favorite song from my catalog, you know, it used to be You and I for a long time, but then I started making more music recently, and my new music is definitely a lot better with the new skills from my school. But that one's a hard one. I gotta say it's going to be a tie between Touch and Know Me, which are the two recent tracks that I just released. Yeah.
This year?
This year, yeah. Like the Know Me track, my boy Alec, also known as Malibu's Most Wanted on Instagram if you want to follow him. But his stage name is Dabs. And you know, with him, we made a song last year as well, and we just flow so fast. Like we did it in one day. Like that track was made in one full day, and not even like 24 hours. I'm talking about like we had like 6 hours in the studio.
Wow.
You know, and
the chemistry was there.
Yeah, we just flowing so well, and the energy, the feel, like that track, the theme, because I like to theme all my tracks as well through the story of what I'm going through, and what the track talks about is like, you know me, and like going through the process of people not knowing you or believing in you, and like that was like my way of embodying like, hey, I know you don't know me, but here's a presentation, you know. And Alec did such a great job to collab with me on that. He had a bass line already off the bat. And same thing with BMO. BMO came in hot with our Touch track. And mind you, just so you guys know, because I don't think a lot of people know, Touch was actually finished sometime last year. So this song has been in our what I like to call a vault for like 8-9 months almost.
No way.
Yeah, so we held that one for a while. We tested it out in a couple of shows. Like we did Clune at Fulton 55 earlier this year, and that's the first time that I like really played it full, and it just smacked. And at that point, as I know he knew and I knew, we're like, all right, this is gonna be a good one. And same thing, he came in, you know, with some ideas already ready to go. I was able to sprinkle my things on it, get a little free with it, and you know, those are, I gotta say, are the two best tracks that I have in my catalog that are my favorite.
You guys got to check them out, Touch and Know Me. Everything will be linked in the bio, so you guys have to tune in. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. We have, again, Marvin with Bipolar Frequencies. Always remember, doubt kills, embrace now, and live your legacy. Thank you.
Thank you, bro. That was beautiful.
So much, man.
That was so much fun.
Yeah, you did amazing.